And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players, an MLS podcast, or for this month, a World Cup podcast. Because today, with the World Cup just a touch over 2 weeks away, we are bringing you our team and group previews. Every team from every group. Imagine it's like the not so deep dives, but make it the World Cup edition. I'm Andrew, that's Connor, and here are your World Cup team previews. Big Cone, how are you? Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm excited because the Knicks are one game away from the NBA Finals. This is now a Knicks podcast, actually. Forget the World Cup.
Sorry, OPP says we can't be doing that, so we are not
OPP is
infringing
dead.
upon.
It's
No,
dead.
hashtag bring back the OPP.
Maybe someday.
Oh
It's a pipe dream.
man, oh man, I miss the OPP, but I also love the World Cup. It is the greatest sporting event of all time. No, nobody can argue that. I don't care about your Super Bowls. I don't care about your Stanley Cup playoffs. They all have their specialties, but nothing is better than the World Cup because it brings you just the greatest of everything. International competition, pride in your country, and really cool soccer scarves. Connor, what are you rocking today? Can I guess? No way.
Probably. Take a wild guess here.
Is it my boy Tyler? You doing Red Bull represent? Yeah.
Yeah, but just for the sake of both sides have Tyler's name on it. I was gonna say just for the sake of that, I'm not gonna put it on I'm gonna use the non-Tyler Adams side, but both of them have
Ah,
Tyler Adams.
I should have nabbed the One Nation, One Team Red Bull scarf off the wall, but that was too much work for me. So I grabbed the One Nation, One Team USA only scarf, which still works and is pretty cool. I do have a cool one for our second episode. So today we're going to do groups 1 through 6. Was that A, B, C, D, E, F? So A to F. And then the rest of them will come in the second one. We cannot do this as a straight up 4 hour episode. It's going to take too long, but 48 teams is a lot. I can't wait till they expand 2030 to 60 teams because that was rumored the other day.
Oh my God.
Oh, God,
Let's just have
nasty.
everybody in there at this point.
Well, that's what I said. I go, just go ahead and put everybody in there. And we need to see San Marino against England. We don't see that enough, obviously. So we need to put them in the World Cup. It'll be different, I swear.
Yeah,
But
just
listen,
just
make
just
sure.
do like 128 teams and then just do like one-off bracket style gigantic bracket and that's it. No group
Honestly,
stages anymore.
I'd be here
It'd
for it.
be exciting.
I'd be here for it. As
Yeah.
long as it doesn't have to go through a group stage, that's fine. If you want to do just because what is that? That's if you let's just say March Madness, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Sure. I'll take 64, and then if you double that, it's a seventh game. Whatever, sure. Listen, make sure you hop on right now. Subscribe to us wherever you are taking in this content so you don't miss a second of our World Cup coverage all month long. We're not making group stage predictions here. We're going to save that for one more episode next week. So this is just previews. But if you want to see what our predictions look like, make sure you subscribe so you can see who I am predicting to be successful. Connor's best guess, because we all know how his predictions work. And then you can put
Listen,
your
my last
bets.
World Cup predictions were good, all right? I
I don't even
predicted the
remember.
entire US group perfectly.
That's not impressive.
It is you didn't do it.
I predicted a lot more than that. I predicted Uruguay to go out in the group stages, and they did. And you put them. I think you put them in first. I think overall, I think I won the predictions. So
You don't know anything, so
nice, good one, good comeback, bro. All right, listen, we can waffle on forever, but we have a lot to get to today. So I think we start at the beginning. We go to Group A. Cool.
that sounds like a good idea.
We got Mexico, who are co-hosts, South Africa, South Korea, and Czechia or Czech Republic. I don't know if they've officially changed their name. Wikipedia had them as Czech Republic, but the World Cup had them as Czechia. So, you know, pick as you will. This is a USMNT fans' worst nightmare group. Not because the teams are difficult or that we're going to play them, but because the majority of the rosters of each of these teams are made up of players from their national leagues. K League, Liga MX, South African League, Czech League, all very well represented here. Very few players from Europe, which is just sending USMNT Twitter into a frenzy. It's crazy, but obviously, Mexican fans and South African fans are losing their mind because they are playing with non-Euro based players, right? You would imagine.
Probably, but at the same time, that argument really can't be made for the Czech Republic because their domestic league already is in Europe. So
Fair
technically,
enough.
everybody there is Europe.
Fair enough. You got me there. You got me there. But we're going to start with the 15th ranked team in the world who are entering the tournament as one of the three hosts. It's Mexico, right? They're coached by 67-year-old manager Javier Aguirre, and he has been playing decent football, right, for a CONCACAF region. They're in their ninth straight World Cup finals, and they are looking to get to the quarterfinals for the first time since 1986. They are unbeaten in the year 2026 with a 1-1 draw to Belgium, a 0-0 draw to Portugal. They, like the other two hosts, have not had any qualifying games to play, so they've been able to play a ton of friendlies, taking on the likes of other nations like Iceland and Bolivia. They've yet to announce their World Cup squad, but it is likely to be full of Liga MX faces trying to show off on the world stage and raising their stocks in the coming months. Who is one of your players to watch here?
Yeah, so Mexico, I've gone for Santiago Jimenez. He is probably at least at the club level. I guess arguably. I mean, Raul Jimenez, I think, has maybe a little bit more of the legacy at this point, but I think Jimenez has maybe more of the current ability. But thing is, he's had a bit of a tough year this year, has not scored any goals for AC Milan in Serie A this season. Granted, he missed a bunch of time with injury, so I'll give him a little bit of a pass for that. But still, he made 15 appearances, played about 850 minutes, no goals, one assist. That's tough for him to be coming into the World Cup in, but we know what he's capable of. We saw him do it in the Dutch league. At times, he could definitely be the best player for Mexico. Feels like he's arguably the most talented. I feel like we've just yet to really see that for Mexico themselves. So I think he's going to be a super important player for them as to what version of Santi Jimenez are they getting.
I like that. For me, I think there's one name that we all can watch for if he makes the team. I assume he will, and that's 17-year-old Gilberto Mora. Right, remember him in the Leagues Cup, absolutely electric at just 16 years old. And he hasn't been involved a ton in Tijuana's side this year, just 16 of a possible 34 matches. He does have 3 goals and 1 assist. If he doesn't make the team, I think Obed Vargas is another one that is really easy to pick out here. Seattle Sounders Academy product, recently transferred over from Atletico Madrid, absolutely balling out in Spain, not missing a beat as he slides into the side, appearing in 11 of 15 games he's been there for. And he's only 20 years old as well, so he's got a bright future, and I'm really excited to see how he holds up in the World Cup. However, then of course, I just want to highlight some MLS players to keep an eye on because, as you know, this is an MLS show. So they only have announced the how do you say the provisional roster, not the full one. So it's like a 55-man name team. Red Bull, Jorge Ruvalcaba or George Ruvalcaba, depending on how you pronounce it. I think he pronounces it George, which is interesting. He was selected as well as Miami's German Berterame. There is a host of former MLSers in there, right? Julian Araujo, Richie Ledesma, and Brian Gutierrez, Obed Vargas that we mentioned before. So tons of names that MLS fans will know, of course, being so close to MLS, to keep an eye on here. But I do think that there are a lot of really fun names here, and in a group that really you might like their chances to get out of, right? We move on to the second team here. It's the 60th ranked team, the host of the 2010 World Cup. The first one I remember watching from start to finish, it's South Africa. It's their fourth World Cup finals, still trying to get out of the group stages for the first time ever. They've yet to do so. They're led by 74-year-old manager Hugo Broos of Belgium, and they're taking their team of mostly South African Premiership players, Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates specifically, and they've done pretty well since Hugo Broos has been appointed in 2021. He's had 55 games with them, a 1.84 points per game tally. They haven't played much in 2026, just a couple of times against Panama. They tied once, they lost once, and they qualified by topping their group, the Group C of the CAF qualifying. So they won 5 times in that group, drawing 3 out of 10 matches, only losing twice. They beat out Benin, Nigeria by 1 point apiece. Anybody that you want to keep an eye on here from this group, or anything else you want to add about this team before we move on to that? Is there something you want to add there?
No, I mean, I don't think anything to add, but I mean, the last time we watched them in the World Cup, they were such an exciting team to watch, even if the results didn't necessarily come their way. So excited to see them back in here. It is so hard to qualify out of Africa's qualifying for the World Cup. So big credit to them for qualifying. They should not be slept on. No African team should really be slept on considering how hard it is to qualify. So even if you don't necessarily recognize a lot of the names on the roster, I think they're still a team that should not be taken lightly. And I think one of the players for me that's going to be a big part, well, potentially a big part of that. I guess I don't really know enough about South African football to know who's going to be starting where and what shape and all that. But I've picked Ronwen Williams as one of my guys to watch here. A super experienced goalkeeper for them, 34 years old at this point. He's made 62 appearances for South Africa. When he plays, he is the captain for the team, for at least from what it looks like. And he has played over 500 club appearances in South Africa. Um, as I said, super experienced. South Africa likely is going to be on the back foot in a lot of these games, as much as they are not a team you should sleep on. I think they're still going to be probably playing a lot in their own half. And that means that they're going to need big performances from their goalkeeper if they're going to stay in these games. So I've gone for Ronwen Williams on the assumption that he is going to be starting for them in goal.
Well, and like I said, it is an assumption. You're right. They haven't announced the roster yet, but we can surmise a few of those names. One of the MLS names to watch is, oh God, I'm gonna butcher it. Mbekazeli Mbakazi from Chicago, of course, right? I may not be able to pronounce his name well, but I love watching the guy play, right? He is just much must see action on any given Saturday. He is cinema at center back. He makes the game fun, but he's also very, very solid. Then, of course, you have players like Bongi Hlongwane out of Minnesota, who has featured in the team recently. But one player who I think is going to be expected to carry the load is Lyle Foster, the Premier League striker who appeared in 26 matches for Burnley, netting 3 times and notching 2 assists. If South Africa want a chance to get out of the group, they're going to need to score some goals, and I think he's the man who's going to have to do it for them.
I mean, if we're talking MLS representation, I know it's not exactly MLS, but Orlando Pirates is close enough, right? We could give some love to the Orlando Pirates.
Oh man, yeah, that's your new rival. Orlando City about to get relegated. If we had relegation, they'd be gone. So, um, you
No,
know, they
I like this Orlando team. I don't like the frauds in Florida.
fair enough. So yeah, I think they're going to be a team not to be slept on. I think they're just a lot of fun, right? They might not have a super deep, you know, list of like when we go to Spain and we start talking about Spain, where their least expensive or least rated player is like 45 million pounds worth, and these guys are like $45,000 type of thing. It is what it is, but I think they're going to be a lot of fun. We'll move on then to South Korea, who is the 25th ranked nation and the first team of the preview who has actually announced their roster. This is another team which USMNT fans are never going to survive being a supporter of because half of their roster is coming from the homegrown league, and that just can't happen. Led by 57-year-old Hong Myung Bo, butchered that probably. I apologize. We are going to try our best this whole episode, I promise. He was appointed in 2024, and he has just under 2 points per game in the 21 games he's managed so far. They are in their 11th straight finals and are aiming to reach the heights of 2002, where they finished in 4th place. This is another team that hasn't played a ton in 2026, only twice in March, both shutout losses to the Ivory Coast and Austria. However, they went on a 3-game win streak at the end of 2025 against Paraguay, Bolivia, and Ghana, while also beating the US 2-0 as well. They qualified by topping Group C and then making it to the third round of the African qualifiers, beating out Thailand and Singapore and being joined by China. Then they topped Group B in the third round, beating out Palestine and Kuwait. Qualifying is a nightmare. You mentioned the easiest one to understand is CONMEBOL, right? These are your countries. Go fight. USA is or CONCACAF is kind of okay. Europe is kind of okay. Africa and Asia is just blowing my mind. And you're absolutely right. One of the hardest to qualify is out of Africa. It's like you lose one game and it's over for you.
Yeah, it's wild.
Wow, what a nightmare. But they did qualify by topping Group B of the third round qualifiers. There's only one MLS player in their group. It's Song Hyung-min, of course, from LAFC. Anybody that you want to keep an eye on here that is in their official 26-man team? Anybody jump out to you?
Yeah, I mean everybody's going to be paying attention to Son, I think. Obviously he's kind of the face of the team. He's the one that everybody knows the most, but to me, he's arguably the best player in this team right now. And I say arguably because there's a bunch of good players in this team. I think they're a really underrated team. But I've gone for Lee Kang-in from PSG. He is a midfielder, I believe,
Yep.
um, who has had a big part in this PSG team that is in back-to-back Champions League finals, potentially back-to-back winners of the Champions League. So, I mean, talk about coming in good form on a very like this is not the old PSG that we used to know that would, spend a lot of money and choke things away. It's a very well-built team and a very good team, and he's a big part of it. Maybe not the biggest part of it, but he's a big part of it. I mean, he played almost 2,000 minutes for them across all competitions this season. So I think he's going to be an ultra super important part of this team and certainly in the attack, especially while teams kind of focus more on Son.
Yeah, I like it. I've thought about him as well. For me, it's going to be Kim Min-jae. He's a center back for Bayern, for those of you who don't know. And Bayern, I don't know if I'd say the German league is the easiest of those top five leagues, but it's definitely not the hardest. um, they ran that thing riot. They scored the most goals in the history of the game for a single season. He played 25 times for this team, scored once, assisted once, about 1,600 minutes. But the thing that I'm interested in is how he handles himself in a team that doesn't include other $70 million center backs next to him or a legendary goalkeeper behind him. So he's going to have to be the focal point. In the Bayern team, he's not the guy, he's a guy. In South Korea, he has to be the guy, right? So I'm interested to see if how he steps up and attacks this challenge, right? And obviously his performances got him to the Napolis and the Bayerns before, but what can he do now on the biggest stage when people know who he is, right?
He's had Kim and Jay has had a really crazy career path so far. I don't know if you've ever I mean, I'm sure you haven't, but I don't know if you've ever looked at his career path before. He went from, I mean, obviously, I can remember him being at Napoli before going to Bayern, but he started in Korea
Mhm.
and then he played in China actually
Oh, I didn't know
before
that.
yeah, he played in China before he moved to Fenerbahce, and then he went from Fenerbahce to Napoli.
Yeah,
The
didn't
crazy
know
career
that.
path. Like, how
That
did
is,
that happen?
bro. I'll tell you, Turkey have some like if we did a I forgot you played there for Turkish teams, they would
Oh
be
yeah.
equally as crazy. They have some big names that cross their paths every once in a while. All right, well, let's finish up Group A here, and we'll talk about the 41st ranked team. It's Czechia. Czechia, or again, the Czech Republic. They qualified after finishing second in UEFA Group L behind Croatia. I mean, they to get to the playoffs, that's how they did it, and they had to beat out a couple of monsters in that group: the Faroe Islands, Montenegro, Gibraltar. It's a miracle they even made it this far to the playoffs, but they did. They forced it out and they got to pathway D, where penalty kicks were their friend. They beat Ireland and Denmark in this fashion and booked their ticket to the USA. It's led by another. Let me just go back. I spent like 8 hours prepping this file. I forgot what I said on half of these things. I said this group is led by another grandpa, 74-year-old Czech Miroslav Kubek. Crazy. Um, he was appointed just a few months ago. He has only coached them in two playoff matches, and now he heads to the World Cup with hopes to make a deep run. They enter their first World Cup, officially known as Czechia. They qualified once as the Czech Republic, and then they made it to the final match twice as Czechoslovakia early in the World Cup's history. Um, Anything you want to talk about them before we talk about their players to watch?
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see teams who qualified through the playoff. Like, does that give them any advantage? Does that any disadvantage? Like having those kind of extra games in there,
Mhm.
does it fatigue them more? Does it make them more prepared? That's what I'm kind of thinking about. So like I'm keeping an eye on the Czech Republic or Czechia, um, as well as like the other UEFA teams that came through in the playoff, or honestly, you could even say the other like intercontinental playoffs as well. But I'm curious to see if like the extra games is maybe better for them to kind of get a little bit more chemistry, figure out their style a little bit more, or if it's an area where maybe it tires their guys out a little bit extra. But um, yeah, I mean, I'll jump into player to watch for me, but I've gone for I think probably a pretty easy one, and I'm sure a lot of people's player to watch, but I've gone for Patrick Schick. I think he has been at the club level really taking steps forward, and even at the international level as well. I feel like he's getting involved in a lot of goal scoring opportunities for Czechia. And was at Bayer Leverkusen this last season was fantastic for them. I mean, he had 22 goals in all competitions, 16 in the Bundesliga. I think they're going to need him to be playing at that level if they're going to want to be competitive. I think they have a group where if he's maybe not at his best, they can still get out of it. But if they're going to make any bit of a run in this tournament, then he's got to be playing at that top level.
Yeah, I agree. And I mentioned Schick from Leverkusen as well in my kind of short list. But just before we get into that, a note there is one MLS player on the provisional roster, and that is FC Cincinnati's Pavel Buka. Based on FC Cincinnati's form, I don't think it's very likely he makes it, but pretty cool to be even included in that list right now. Again, a note to say that if you are European and you come over here, you are not banned from your national team. People are still looking at you, and you're still able to make it in there, as we'll talk about when we get to teams like Croatia, for example. But I mentioned Patrick Schick, like I said, but the one that I'm keeping an eye on, and it's more of a I wonder what he'll do type of pick, is Pavel Sulk. Pronunciation maybe needs some help, but he's a highly rated attacking midfielder at a Lyon who played 27 times for this French side. He had 11 goals and 3 assists. And he tallied a goal and 3 assists in 8 Europa League games as well. I don't imagine many people know who he is. I didn't know who he was when we were doing this prep, but I'm interested to see if he'll make a name for himself. I believe he's only like 20 or 21 years old, so interested to see how he gets in and puts himself out there for this Czechia side. All right, then let's move on to Group B. We've got Canada, the second hosts, who will face off against Bosnia, Qatar, and Switzerland. This is a strong group. It's got two European sides in it, and the rankings, as much as you want to lean into them, they're not all the highest, but they're all very close together, which you imagine will lead to some fun games. And then we start off with the Canadians. They're the 30th ranked team in the nation, and they're famously coached by the greatest manager in international football. Some have said football history, Red Bull's own Jesse Marsh. The first of many members of the Red Bull that make this world, the world take squad is what I'm calling it. So managers, players, former players, all of them will be mentioned in the next two episodes. So we're going to put together a nice once upon a time Red Bull or current Red Bull 11 maybe at the end. I think that'd be pretty fun, right? You would agree?
No, nope. Hard disagree.
it's uh it's only their third ever World Cup. They still have not won a World Cup match in their history. So they're trying to change that. Once again, no qualifiers. So they've played 3 games in 2026. They tied Tunisia, tied Iceland, and beat Guatemala. They are unbeaten in their last 6, conceding only twice, and have only lost one friendly since the Gold Cup crash out of June 2025. In that time, they've beaten Romania and Wales and only conceded 3 total goals. 2 impressive draws in there as well against Colombia and Ecuador. What are your thoughts on this Canada team?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a team that's better than their World Cup history implies. I mean, they're a talented team, a lot of good players on it. I certainly think if for whatever reason they continue the trend of not winning any World Cup games, then that's a massive, massive disappointment for them. But this is a group that I think that they certainly can get out of and arguably should get out of. So, very interested to see how they perform this time around with last World Cup maybe being their dipping their toe in the water of getting back into the swing of things and, guys getting a little bit of experience playing at a tournament of this size. So, very interested to see how things pan out for them this time. I think it's going to be a bit different though.
Yeah, you would hope so, but there is this very interesting piece of news that comes out of Canadian camp that I want to get your thoughts on. I'm sure you've seen it. They haven't named their roster yet, but there's this most interesting to me rumor or report around Bayern Munich left back Alphonso Davies, who history of injuries, we know this, you know, extensively, unfortunately, but Bayern Munich are reportedly, and I quote, not allowing Canadian soccer to decide if Alphonso Davies gets to go to the World Cup. That end quote. They basically are saying, "Hey, we know you want him to play, but we pay his salary, so we decide what he gets to do." Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean that's a make or break right there for Canada. I mean, as you mentioned, I know he's got even this season was a absolute poster child for his injury history, constantly in and out of the team. But when he's out there, he is unquestionably Canada's most important player. Whether he's playing as a defender or he's playing in the attack. I mean, we've seen him do both. He started as an attacker in Major League Soccer, became a defender over in Europe, but he is an incredibly important and fantastic player. So if he's not going to be able to make it, that's going to be a huge blow for Canada. In terms of like clubs being able to have say on who gets to go or not, listen, I get it. You're paying the salary, but like that's certainly not going to rub off well on any of the players that are on your club. Like you're going to tell them that they have to miss this opportunity to go play in the biggest competition in the entire world, the biggest sports competition in the whole world. Like that's gonna certainly that if even if I'm not Alfonso Davies, if I'm another player on Bayern, that's rubbing me the wrong way. I'm gonna be like, well, I'm getting out of here because you never know what could happen to somebody. It's like, okay, you look at somebody like Alphonso Davies and you're like, oh, well, if he misses this one, he's only 25 or whatever, like surely he'll be in the next one. But you never know. You could have a career-ending injury sometime in the next 4 years and never get to play in a World Cup again. And it's like, well, you took away this opportunity that I could have played in a World Cup right now. So I understand where they're coming from in terms of why they're doing this, but I don't agree with it. I think it's going to rub, I think it's putting even more power in the hands of the clubs, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is absolutely insane to me, right? And it's not the first time we've seen a team do this, right? We remember Crystal Palace with the Chris Richards thing, right? But Bayern coming out and ruining the chances of one of their players to play in the biggest tournament in the world, as you mentioned, on home soil is ridiculous. And you mentioned the players at the club. Bayern's whole thing is we buy our titles, right? We go out, we buy the best players. There's not a lot of development. There's some, but for the most part, it's all purchased, right? If I'm any player looking for a new club and this is how they treat their players, I'm running the other way, right? And you can miss me with the well they pay their salaries, they get to decide what he does. If it's a and you again you mentioned this too, right? If it's a friendly Nations League Gold Cup, okay, it's a different story. This is the World Cup. You know, you do only get a handful of these. You never know, like you said, if you're going to be back for it. Once in a lifetime to do it at home. If they decide to do this, and I'm Alfonso Davies, the second the transfer window opens, here are my papers. I want out. You do not get to tell me that I have to miss it because I'm only 97% not 100. You don't want me to get hurt. And again, if it's I've got, you know, if he's 50%, okay, maybe that's a different story. But if he is good enough to go and you don't let him go, I'm out.
Yeah,
Sorry.
100%. I get that. Yeah, 100%. I'd be in the same boat too. I mean, again, even if I'm not Alfonso Davies, it's like I'm somebody who's maybe more on the cusp of, I guess even if I'm a mainstay in a World Cup roster squad, I'm going to be like, well, who's to say they're not going to do this to me?
Right. 100%. 100%. But anyways, you know, enough on that. Tons of MLS and former MLS players in the mix, as one would expect. You got goalkeeper Maxime Crepeau or Dane St. Clair. Guys in the back. One who just was announced is not going to the World Cup. Kamal Miller. He will not be joining the team. Their official thing gets released sometime in the next couple days, but he will not be going to the team. Joel Waterman, Richie Larea, Sam Adekubi, Steven Eustachio, Jonathan Osorio, Ali Ahmed, Tejan Buchanan, Kyle Larin, Tani Oluwaseyi, tons of MLS and former MLS that are still in the mix. Who is one of the players that you are keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Alfonso Davies after all this stuff, like whether or not he's actually going to be allowed to go.
Right.
Um, and as mentioned, that's going to be massive for them. But another player I'm taking a look at, their star striker, Jonathan David, um, made the move over to Juve this year. And I mean, I guess you can make the argument, but I would say it has been a little bit underwhelming since that move. Eight goals, five assists in all competitions, 2,300 minutes played for them. I mean, he's playing a lot, and I think that's probably the most important thing, even if he's not necessarily playing at a super high level. I think getting that fitness and ex game match experience, I think, is going to be helpful. But I do think it's going to be important for him to kind of raise that level for Canada because, especially if Davies is gone, he's going to be the focal point of the attack. And that's not to say that they don't have other important attacking players. Actually, they certainly do. But Jonathan David, your guy then. If there's no Alphonso Davies, he has to be that guy for them. And
Mhm.
so he's going to have to find that form that he had back when he was playing at Lille. And if he does, then Canada, I think, will be a sleeper, dangerous team. If he doesn't, and he kind of keeps the same form that he's been playing in, could be a really tough tournament for Canada, despite the fact that they have a group that I think they can get out of.
Yeah, it's a good point. For me, it's actually on the other end of the field. I'm looking at whatever the goalkeeper situation is, right? We talked about Kripo and St. Clair having been 1 and 2 for some time now. They've both been pretty poor, right? St. Clair, from a performance standpoint, he's not saving the ball the way he should be. And Kripo, from a results standpoint, he just shipped six last night. And they are Orlando's on pace to give up the most goals in MLS history. So who will Jesse Marsh turn to? Does he turn to a third goalkeeper? I think it's Tom McGill from Brighton, who doesn't get any game time, but is not the other two, right? Do you turn to the one of the two who just are not in good form? This is a very big problem for Canadian soccer, where it's very similar to the way U.S. soccer is. They used to have goalkeepers that they could rely on. At the very least, they knew who it was going to be, and it was repetitive enough. Now they're like, okay, what do we do? Do we play the hot hand? We don't really have a hot hand. Do we go with somebody who's not cold? Do we go with somebody who hasn't been playing? What do we do? That's going to be really, really important for me to take a look at to see what type of success Canada's going to have. All righty. We'll then move on to the 65th ranked nation, Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is going to be their second World Cup officially as B&H, is how I'm going to now keep that because that is too long of a name to say consistently. They were only known as B&H after the 2002 tournament, excuse me. So before that, they were something else. They were a part of Yugoslavia, maybe. Test my ball knowledge here. Test my country knowledge here. I think they were Yugoslavia before they turned into Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think. Somebody correct me. I could look it up.
We
I've
might
got
be
Google
playing a
right.
very dangerous game right now.
I know.
Eastern
Maybe,
Europe hates each other.
maybe we cut the whole
Cut
thing.
all
Let,
that.
let,
Yeah.
let me do this. I would say I have Google right here. I could just Google it, but I was going to try and go up the noggin. Yep, they were Yugoslavia. Get in. Big brain. I paid attention in ninth grade history, baby. Anyways, they're going to hope to get out of the group stage for the first time, qualifying as the second place finishers in UEFA Group H to Austria. They beat out the likes of the mighty Cyprus and San Marino. And they too benefited from penalty kick magic, beating Wales and Italy to make it to the tournament in the playoff mini tournament, I guess you could say. They are led by 54-year-old Bosnian Sergej Barbarez, who has had a difficult start to his time. He had to wait 9 games before notching his first win and suffered some very handed defeats, including 5-2 to the Netherlands and 7-0 to Germany. However, in the last year, he's found some form, found some results, albeit against some less than stellar opponents, and finds himself ready to take on the World Cup. How do you feel about this group?
Should I make the stupid joke that everybody makes about them?
I don't even know what it is.
The that they have an unfair advantage because
Oh,
you get the two nations against one. You got Bosnia and Herzegovina.
that's crazy.
To be honest, I think that they're probably going to have a bit of a tough time through this group. Although, what I will say, I'm 100% not counting them out because there are a bunch of chokers in this group, I will say. Not to be laying it on thick on any of these teams already, but uh Canada and Qatar, I think, combined for a total of 0 wins at the last World Cup, if I'm remembering correctly. So definitely not counting them out, even if they are maybe on the outside looking in on paper. Um, but they've got a lot of experience in this team, and my player to watch here is arguably the most experienced on this team. I've gone for Edin Dzeko here. He's 40 years old at this point, but the 40-year-old striker, probably most well known for this team for ages. I think is still going to have a factor to play in for this team. I mean, you think 40 years old, you're like, oh, surely he's just making like 20-minute cameo appearances late in games. You know, if there's a late corner, throw him in there. Maybe he wins a header. In their World Cup qualifying in the playoffs, he played all 210 minutes in those two games.
Yep.
Wild. Sorry, I shouldn't have said all 210. I think he played 90 against Wales and 120 against Italy is what it looks like.
Yeah.
But
So 210.
regardless, yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's correct though. I don't remember if it goes 120 in that Wales game. I wouldn't know. I'm not a Euro snob. But
Liar.
Dzeko still he played like he scored a goal in that Wales game and he assisted in the game against Italy. So whether he's 40 or not, he's still contributing and didn't get a ton of game time this season for Schalke in the second Bundesliga, but in the time that he did get, he was amazing for them. 6 goals, 3 assists in 600 minutes. That's a crazy return for somebody who's 40. So don't count him out to still contribute for this team. And I think he can bring a ton of experience for all the guys that are on this roster and be a big. I mean, I think he could be if they go through. I think he's going to be a big reason why.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we have one former MLSer in the group, and it's also former USMNT. It's Esmir Bajraktarevic, and it's funny you mention him because there's this whole documentary, or maybe not a documentary, but there's this whole story about Esmir growing up and idolizing Dzeko. Now he gets to play with him at a World Cup. They've both been selected. This is a complete roster that's been announced. They both get to play at the World Cup. Uh, he's just wonderful for him, right? Super happy for him. Player to watch for me is actually going to be the other striker, is Ermedin Demirovic. The Stuttgart striker, he's got double-digit goals in 3 consecutive Bundesliga seasons across 2 different teams, and also has 2 seasons with 10 assists as well, right? Now he's fully back with the squad. He was injured for a little bit. Whether he's scoring or assisting, providing, however you'd like to call it, I think a lot of the attack rests on his shoulders and Dzeko. I think they're going to be combined, maybe like a two-striker thing, but I do think that he is going to be somebody that they lean on heavily to get to where they want to go, which is out of the group.
That is the goal.
Another team that's probably looking to get out of the group is the hosts of the last World Cup. It's the 55th ranked Qatar. In 2022, they were the first host nation since South Africa not to advance out of the group stages. A little bit of fun fact ball knowledge for you there. Go impress your friends at a party. They spent a 5-year period planning their lives around that tournament. And the 23 players selected played together consistently to try and do the best that they could, and they got 0 wins out of it. They have a few decent ballers trained under the guidance of Barca legend Xavi. Many are in the preliminary squad again. This is going to be their first tournament that they made on merit after qualifying directly as a host last time around. And they will be looking to get out of the group stage, like we mentioned, for the first time. They qualified as the AFC fourth round Group A winners, beating out the UAE and Oman in a 3-team round robin. Julian Lopetegui, the 59-year-old Spanish manager formerly of West Ham, Wolves, Sevilla, Real Madrid, and Spain, lots of experience there, has been in charge for the last 10 matches, and it hasn't really been pretty. He was looking at 0.9 points per game in those 10 games, but it was enough to get qualification, so he'll take it. A 2-1 win versus the UAE and a 0-0 draw against Oman sees them in, followed by losses to Zimbabwe, Palestine, and Tunisia, and a draw with Syria. Things could be better for the Qatari team, but they will look to improve when it matters most. Any good feelings about this Qatar team?
They're such an interesting team because they perform so well in their Asian like competitions, and that's not to be slept on. There are really good teams over in Asia. Like when they do well in these competitions, they have to beat out the likes of, Saudi Arabia, Japan, South Korea, like really talented teams that they have to beat out. But then it's like every time we see them, I guess we've really only seen them once on the international stage, so it's harsh to say every time, but
Well, no, we've seen them in the Gold Cup too. They were guests in the Gold Cup in 21.
that's true. That's true. When we've seen them outside of Asia, they don't seem to be the same team. So it's going to be very interesting here. Maybe without the pressure of being the host nation, that can help them. I would certainly think that they're going to perform a little bit better than last time. Granted, the bar is literally on the floor. There's literally nowhere lower to go. But it's a very interesting team. I mean, I think if you're getting the quality that they bring in their Asian competitions, they're going to be a handful to deal with, and they have a very decent shot at getting out of this group. And one of the players for me that's going to be crucial to that is Akram Afif.
Mhm.
He's playing in the Qatari League, I believe, and he dominates there. I mean, he is getting like borderline 40 goal contributions every single season. He's clearly a super talented player, regardless of what the level of the Qatari League is. Um, I mean, he was actually, fun fact that for those who may not know, didn't play for them, but he was once upon a time on the Villarreal roster.
Mm.
So clearly there's some talent there, right? Like that's a big team in Spain. They're not going to bring him in if they don't see that talent in him. So I think he's going to be a crucial piece for them, certainly in the attack. And if he can get to that level and confidence that he has while playing in the Qatari League, he's going to be, I'd say, arguably one of the best attackers in this entire group.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right on board with you. He is the one that gets the headlines. No former MLSers, by the way, to watch for anybody who was hoping some Qatari MLS legends were going to be in there. I
We should
hate to.
change that. Let's
We
let's bring
could.
some guys in.
That's what we should do. And imagine how crazy Immaculate Grid would go. MLS
It would be-
Qatar.
there's one player. The grid would the grid would be pretty sparse.
Um, the player I'm more interested in though is Edmilson Jr. He's a Brazilian born in Belgium, comes up through the Sint-Truiden Academy, then makes his name known with Standard Liège, purchased by Al Duhail, one of the two, for 5 million in 2019, and has been a feature for the Qatari national team since 2024. Just a very weird path to get there. Obviously, not a natural Qatari-born player, but a dual national in a group that basically ran through a fief last year. I'm interested, or last time around, I'm interested to see what another player can do. The problem for him, he's been playing since 2024, 0 goals, and I think 1 assist in that time. Again, against not such great competition. So I'm interested to see one, how much they rely on him, and two, if they do rely on him, what is that level that he's going to get to? Because a guy that, has done all this work to try and get to this level and not produce feels kind of like an interesting one to watch. All right. Well, and then finally, we will wrap it up with 19th ranked Switzerland, who for the first time in a very long time is going to the World Cup without top five worst DP in MLS history, Xherdan Shaqiri. They are in their sixth straight World Cup, but they are looking to get to the quarterfinals for the first time since 1954. That is a crazy amount of time to not get past a round of 16. Switzerland qualifies as the top team out of Group B in UEFA, which, to be fair, was one of the more difficult groups. Kosovo, Slovenia, and Sweden in that one. Not getting the 250th ranked team, pretty good for them. They're led by 51-year-old Swiss manager Murat Yakin since 2021. So he's been here, done that. And they are in fine form, full of top talent, likely to be one of the favorites out of Group B. Only one loss in their last 12 and have some handed results in there, including 4-0 over Kosovo, 4-0 over the USA, 4-2 over Mexico, and 4-1 over Sweden. The group scores for fun, and it's going to be interesting to see them on the world stage for sure. How do you feel about this group?
Yeah, I mean, to me, you could make the argument that they're the favorites of this group. I mean, there's definitely talented players in here, but I feel like similar conversation I feel what we've had in most other teams in this group. When the lights are brightest, I feel like, and maybe this is just, I'm going based off of, I don't have facts to back this up, but I feel like every time the lights are brightest, Switzerland falls a little bit short. Like, to your point on them not getting past the round of 16, who's to say that they're not just the Mexico of Europe, right? Like, there seems to be a cap on this team, and I don't know if there's enough in this roster to really change that in this competition. I mean, again, I still think they're the favorite to this group. I think it's not necessarily the strongest group out of the World Cup, but take it to your advantage. I mean, don't underestimate the teams they're going up against. If they do, there's there is definitely a chance that they could slip up in this group. But for me, I think that they're on paper the front runners.
I've often heard people say that Switzerland and Mexico are one and the same. So, you are right on top there. Yeah, it's another group with no MLS or former MLS players on there with the team that has been officially announced. And I'll just give you my player to watch here. I'm focusing on the chance creators, right? Because when you don't, if you looked at their shape over their last couple of games that they've played in qualifying and friendlies and such, it usually doesn't involve the triangle with a 10. It involves flip it this way. So the CDM with two guys in front of him. So there's no real true just sit in the pocket and create type guy. So I am looking at wing play and players who are going to go out wide and create chances from wide areas. For me, it's Ruben Vargas from Sevilla, who has had an all right year with 3 goals and 6 assists, but was an absolute mainstay in World Cup qualifying. 1 goal, 3 assists in 6 games to get them to where they needed to be. I think he's going to be a pretty big part in the Swiss group, who surely have plans for a deep run in 2026, but he has to show up and give the best effort there if they want to be successful.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar boat. I've gone for Dan and Doy from probably butchered that one, but from Nottingham Forest. And another guy that I feel like is in a very similar boat. He had a pretty disappointing first year with Nottingham Forest this year, but he was coming off a very strong year with Bologna, which got him to move over to Nottingham Forest. And another guy that I think was a huge factor in the World Cup qualification. I mean, he had 2 goals, 3 assists in qualifying. He had 2 goals and 4 appearances in their friendlies. So someone who has been playing well for the national team, even if not necessarily for club level, but clearly the talent's there. And if they're seeing the best of him, I think he's going to be a heavily important player for them.
Yeah, like I said, this is what I love about the World Cup. Lots of players that we don't really keep an eye on much as an MLS show that we get to see for a good bit of games in the highest environment, right? So, of the two groups that we've talked about so far, very interested in Group B. I think this has a lot of upset potential, a lot of uh, teams that are lower ranked or their numbers don't look so good that could make a run out of it. I'm excited for this group for sure. Group C has some high-powered teams destined to make some exciting matchups. Brazil is the number one or the top team in the group, if by all accounts, and they are joined by 2022 neutral favorites Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. Not quite the group of death, but a group you would reckon has a chance probably to send the one of the third place finishers into the next round if they perform well. Lots of good talent in this group. I say we start with Brazil. Why not? Sixth ranked team in the nation or in the world. They are the hosts of the 2014 tournament and have won 5 times, most recently in 2002. They've got a rich footballing history, but recently have been dubbed one of the more overrated groups in the country's history, not putting up performances that they needed. They're led by legendary Italian manager Carlo Ancelotti, and he's had some better performances taking over in 2025. Coming in, Brazil were not running Cannonball like they usually do, side by side with Argentina. But under Carlo Ancelotti, he was able to get them into fifth place, comfortably qualifying to the World Cup. They've only played twice in 2026, a 2-1 loss to France, and then beat Croatia 3-1. They've got a cast of huge names and are looking to lift the trophy once more. Do you think they have enough to do it?
Listen, I understand the results were not there in qualifying, but this Brazil team will always have the chance to do it. I mean, there's so much talent in this team, and one thing I will not do is count out a Carlo Ancelotti-led team when it comes to a knockout competition. The guy just knows how to get it done. He's just one of those coaches. He's like Bruce Arena in Major League Soccer. He just knows how to get it done when you need him to get it done. So I get it. They were struggling. There were points in time where it was like, are they going to be in a like playoff game to try to get into the World Cup? Like, is there even a shot in the world that they're about to not qualify right now? Um, but at the end of the day, there's just too much talent in this team for that to necessarily happen. So they got through, and I think I'm sure this will probably end up being a conversation at some point. But I'm going to go into my player to watch here. I've gone for Vinicius Jr. And I'm gonna go for it for a little bit of a different reason. And maybe I'm way off key on this, and somebody can absolutely tell me I'm completely wrong. But this felt like it was going to be the first time Brazil was going to be playing without Neymar, outside of like any injuries. And to me, it felt like as much as there's a ton of talent on this team, and you got guys like Rafinha, Mateus Cunha, this felt like it was going to be Vinny's team. Like I feel like he's been the guy for Brazil, at least at the club level. Maybe not necessarily while playing for Brazil, but it felt like this was going to be like his team. And now Neymar got called in. How does that change things for him? Is it better for him? Is there less of a spotlight on him? He constantly plays under a spotlight playing for Madrid. Is that a benefit for him? Is it worse for him? Is he one of those Madrid guys that has a huge ego and he wants to be the center of the team? So I'm really focused on seeing like mentality wise, what is Vinny Jr. going to look like? Because we know the talent is there. He oozes talent, but very curious to see where his head's going to be at.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the Neymar thing here in just a second, but I too have always just said Carlo Ancelotti is just the Italian Bruce Arena. That's usually where I've put that together. So
People
perfect.
say it. I may be
Yeah,
people.
the streets. I don't know if you've been out there. I know you don't touch grass much, but if you've gone out there, the streets are actually saying,
I live in New York. All I see are streets.
and I'm sure you've heard them say.
I do. I often put my ear to the ground and they be talking.
Yeah, well, because you got to keep your nose to the ground, so your ear's close enough, right? So I do want to talk about this Neymar inclusion, right? This is a super interesting one. No, first off, Brazil are probably getting grouped because no MLS or former MLS players. Sorry, out you go. But they have made like really big international waves, right? They put Neymar back in the team. It made international news. And we've talked about this with the FC Cincinnati thing, right? Like he hasn't been impressive in his last 4 years since leaving PSG. Is that when he left, I think? And we've covered it before, but it feels more like a nostalgia pick, right? You got Messi, Ronaldo, Neuer running it back. Why not throw Neymar in there? Make it something you can put out in the world and market really well. That's what it feels like. He's not scored double-digit goals or even hit double-digit goal contributions since his PSG days, and injuries are more frequent than ever. So it's without a doubt, whatever role he plays, he'll be impactful. But do you think this was a good decision to bring him?
I mean, you're asking the wrong person here. I'm completely biased. I love Neymar, so I'm ecstatic to see him included. But you know what? I mean, I think there's probably certain reasons to bring him, and there's certain reasons not to bring him. I think the reasons to bring him is mainly centered around his experiences and playing in a bunch of World Cups at this point. For guys that are going to be playing their first ever World Cup, he's somebody that they can bank on to be like, hey, this is, you got to go about it this way, try not to put all your focus on this, or like, these are the moments we need to step up and really lock in the most. So I think stuff like that is going to be helpful, especially because like, and I don't know this off the top of my head, and I'm sure he's bounced around so many places. I'm sure he's done international management at some point, but I think of Ancelotti as a club manager, not necessarily a national team manager. And so what's his experience like leading a team in a World Cup? And I'll double check it as you talk through your areas as well. But if there is a lack of experience there, then I think there's even more of a say that you bring Neymar. Like he's a guy that's been there multiple times. He can help kind of be that leadership, that voice for how things work in the World Cup. So I think that's your argument for, and then your argument against is, as you said, like his performances are just not been there. He's not the same Neymar that was thriving at Barcelona. Maybe you get small uses out of him in sub appearances, and he, can be out there for 15 minutes, using a bit more of his energy in that small window and make things happen. But I think you maybe more so have him in almost a leadership role as opposed to like he's going to be your first name on the team sheet.
Yeah. I mean, again, it is his first international gig. Yep, you were not wrong about that. So, um, the I think it's still one of those things where you have to consider what else you have, right? Chelsea's João Pedro, Real Betis's Anthony, Spurs Richarlison are three names that got left off this list that people were like, any of them would have been better than Neymar. João Pedro, and you would know because resident Euro snob and Chelsea fan, 34 games, 23 goal contributions. Anthony for Real Betis, 31 games, 14 goal contributions. Richarlison, 31 games, 15 goal contributions. In all comps, Neymar has 10 goal contributions in like I don't have any games down there, but it feels like it's a big slight for João Pedro specifically. But any of those guys feel like they would have been a better option than Neymar for me. And I get the whole leadership and be there, but if you look at a guy, if you're looking for a leader and somebody with experience and somebody you can work off of, it's not Neymar. Neymar plays for himself, dude. And maybe it changes when he gets into the Brazil squad. But if I'm looking for somebody to get the team going and say, hey, let's go and play for our country, it's not going to be Neymar.
Yeah, fair. It'd probably be like Thiago Silva in that case. Um,
Yeah. Well, and
but
he got
if you,
left off too.
yeah, what I will say is, if you're gonna point at somebody that maybe should have been swapped out for João Pedro, because I agree, João Pedro should have been on this team. Why Neymar? Why not like Luis Henrique instead of Neymar? Right? Like we're talking about a guy who's got 10 goal contributions in 2,000 minutes playing in the Russian league. Like, what exactly was the draw to get him in there instead of Neymar? Or like him
When
in
was the
there
last
instead of
time
João
Neymar
Pedro?
played for Brazil?
That I don't know.
His last appearance was
Really?
2023 was his last
2023?
appearance. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that was way longer than I thought it was going to be.
Yep, that changes things, don't it?
Maybe a little bit, but I'm still biased.
I know you are. I can't change my opinion because I don't want to. Anyways, I think that's a heated one, and it again when you talk about bringing players in just for marketability, right? As we hear all the time about our league, that's what that is. That isn't a uh, hey, he's been playing in every game but hasn't been producing very well for Brazil. Now we don't know. He genuinely just hasn't been with the team. So I don't know. Anyways, my player to watch, I'm going with Arsenal center back Gabriel. He has been the center back of one of the best back lines in the Premier League for a few years now. And while Brazil can score for fun, they need to be defensively solid if they want to go deep in this tournament. So they're going to have to really lock in here and make sure that they don't slip up if they want to really go and push for the finals. Let's move on to Morocco. They're ranked eighth in the world, which is crazy considering where they were just a couple of years ago. In 2022, they were everybody's favorite neutral side, and for good reason. This is a deep run to the semifinals in 2022 that made them the Cinderella story that everybody wanted to get behind, and they represented Africa with pride. It was their best finish in the history of the country, notching a fourth place end in that tournament. And this Moroccan side was the first African team to qualify in 2026, winning Group E of African qualifying with a perfect 8-0-0 record, scoring 22 times and only conceding twice. They're led by 49-year-old Belgian Mohamed uh, Ouahabi, Ouabi, Ouabi, who took over just 2 months ago from Walid Regragui, who led them on that great World Cup run before quitting in March due to feeling that the team needed, and I quote, a new coach heading into the World Cup with fresh ideas. Do you think this is a smart call or a stupid decision for him to quit right at the end?
I mean, in what scenario is it the right call? Why would that ever be the right call to have a head coach change right before the World Cup starts?
I mean, it could be, right? If he's, we've had a couple of coaches who have been changed very recently that we'll talk about as we get deeper, but you're looking at a group that I mean, they're eighth in the world. They're flying. Why do you need new ideas? That his whole point wasn't, oh, we're not winning. It was, I think that the team needs new ideas. I quit. He didn't get fired. He quit. Why?
That I don't know. I mean, I don't doesn't make any sense. I agree with you. I mean, I think from following African qualifying for the World Cup, it was such a bloodbath in so many of the groups, but Morocco just like was coasting. Like nobody was touching Morocco. Um, and that's credit to what they had going, like system wise. I mean, they're number 8 in the world for a reason. They've been incredibly good. I personally don't think that they necessarily need new ideas. I think that they honestly just needed another shot at the World Cup, considering how they've been playing. So, um, it's certainly a monkey wrench into things, and will be very interesting to see how that pans out. But it's going to only be a detriment to them because they were playing so well up to that point.
Yeah, and if you did this 2 years ago, it's a different story, right? But you're taking a team that's been so good for so long, throwing in a brand new system and tactics and coaching voice. That's another huge thing that is different. If you're so used to hearing the same coach over and over and over again, and now you're just saying, oh, here's a new guy, instantly you've got half the guys who are like, I don't want to do this, right? There's a bunch of criticism for him not being able to win AFCON after the World Cup, but even then, like you didn't win the tournament. I mean, like I get it's a high bar, but you make that change after the World Cup, not now.
Yeah.
There's been no squad announced yet, but and there's actually no provisional squad to work on either. But it was reported that FC Cincinnati's Ayoub Jabari has been included in the 55-man list, which is pretty cool. Um, Anybody that you want to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess considering there's really not any like even preliminary roster to work with, I've gone for one of the more obvious picks here, but I've gone for Akraf Hakimi,
Nice.
um, which I think will be very interesting to see what his role looks like because he's another guy that is super, super talented, but gets injured a ton and is he might still currently be injured. I would say most likely, considering he did not play in PSG's last game of the season, which was a week ago at this point. But when he's out there, I mean, he is captain of the Moroccan side. He's captaining a PSG team that, as we've talked about before, is going back to back Champions League finals. So he's an incredible player. And in his last three international friendlies that he's played in, from the right back position, has gotten an assist in the first game, an assist in the second game against Ecuador, and two assists in the game against Paraguay. He has quite literally assisted in the last three games that he's competed in. He has assisted every single goal that Morocco has scored. So if that is not a big enough sign of how important he is to this team, I don't know what is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody knows what he can do and what he needs to do and be healthy to do. 100% agree. For me, I'm looking at 18-year-old Ayoub Bouadi. He had 30 appearances for Lille in League One, starting most of them, which is crazy for an 18-year-old in a top five league, right, or top six, depending on where you put them now. But he's a French-born central midfielder that worked his way up through the youth systems of the French youth teams before switching to Morocco, and now he has a chance to do what he does at the world stage if he gets called up. And I imagine that there would not be a reason he wouldn't be here. And again, we're guessing, but he's shown really, really well. And at the very least, you know me, give him roster spot 26. Let him be a part of it, right? Um, we're going to talk about some other teams that haven't done that in the next group, maybe. But I am all on board for somebody who has that much experience and that much success getting his shot in these sorts of moments. So I know Connor agrees with me, and I'm not even going to let him disagree with me. So we'll just move on then to the CONCACAF representative for the group, which is Haiti, the 83rd ranked team, I believe the lowest in the entire tournament. And quite frankly, it's not a dream draw going up against the Brazils of the world. Well, I guess it's a dream draw for experience, but maybe not for the the opportunity to move on. But we'll never know, or we will know, but we'll never. You never know. Yeah, it's been a long couple of days. Leave me alone. Just being here has to be exciting for them. They are led by 53-year-old Frenchman Sebastien Mignet. And they qualified by topping Group C of CONCACAF qualifying. They had a 3-2-1 record against the likes of Honduras, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua. Outside of those matches, they've also recorded a 1-0 loss to Tunisia and a 1-1 draw with Iceland. Do we like it? How do we feel? We got a Haiti in the World Cup final?
Um, maybe if you're in a fever dream and you were high on drugs, but um, listen, I don't want to be hating on them, no pun intended, but
Nice.
this is a pipe dream, if ever, to try to get out of this group. I mean, listen, it was going to be tough no matter what group they're in. You could put them in Group B, and it would be tough for them to get out of. You've arguably put them in the group of death. I would say most likely you've put them in the group of death, and you're expecting them to get out. I mean, to be honest, and again, I don't want to be hating too much or be too like disrespectful, but I think realistically, if this was not CONCACAF host having three host nations, Haiti's probably not in this tournament. Um, but here we are. They're here. It's an amazing opportunity for them. And no matter what happens, I think they got to just try to make the most of it and go into every game with this we have nothing to lose mentality. I think that's your best shot at getting out. I mean, we've seen Brazil's beatable. Morocco's going to be really hard, but maybe they have some instability with the new coach change. And Scotland is another team that is beatable. So I wouldn't say the pipe dream is completely dead, but it's certainly a pipe dream. One of the players I think is going to be important for them is the very experienced and amazing name, by the way, Duckins Nazone. What a
Duckins, my
what a
boy
guy.
Duckins. Yeah.
What a
I
guy.
love Duckins in the
What a
zone. What a
guy.
lad.
Um, he has been he's made 76 appearances for Haiti with 44 goals. A great return for them, by the way. What role he plays, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, he's on the wrong side of 30, but I still think there's opportunity for him to contribute. And somebody who has this much experience, even if Haiti hasn't been in the World Cup, I think will be a benefit to the team. So I think regardless of whether or not he's your starting attacker, he's playing all 90 minutes, I think he's going to be important for all these guys on the squad.
Dude, this guy has been everywhere. All right. Starts in
Yeah.
France, goes to India for a hot minute, over to Wolves and a bunch of loans in lower league England, Belgium, Scotland, back to France. Is that Hungary? I think it's Hungary, Turkey, and now back to India. No, that's Persia. Persian Gulf League. This
Yep.
dude has been everywhere. I
He's
remember
been
when I
in
first saw him.
Bulgaria,
Oh, it's Bulgaria, not Hungary. It was
Turkey.
Bulgaria. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I remember when he broke on with Haiti. I was like, somebody in MLS has to sign him just for the name. All names 11 needs to get him in there. Speaking of MLS, lots of MLS vibes in this one, right? DEJ7, Danley Jean Jacques, Lucius Dietzen. They also have some former, or rather, not former, but they have some dual national commits I wanted to highlight because it's very interesting. Sunderland's Wilson Isidore, a striker with 6 Premier League goals this season, and Wolves' Jean Rincier Belgrade, who played 26 times for Wolves, both of which flipped from France. So it's not just, they're going to have a little bit more about them than just kind of the old Haiti that we knew of. That was just kind of like a bunch of guys from the island, really. And my guy to keep an eye on is Wilson Isidore, right? Big issue for Haiti that you will remember from Gold Cups and qualifying is they in CONCACAF in general, they just haven't had a goal scorer. Their attacking output has been really poor. Now they've got Isidore, and he will need to be firing on all cylinders to get this team ready to be competitive in a very tough group. I would agree. We aren't making predictions, but I'd agree that it's probably not going to be the nicest tournament for them. But get everybody on the right page, you never know. And then we'll finish up here in the group with Scotland, who are 43rd in the world. It's their first appearance since 1998, and they are looking to get out of the group for the very first time. The land of the two club league made it to the World Cup by winning UEFA Group C over Denmark, Greece, and Belarus with a 4-1-1 record. Steve Clark's Tartan Army. Remember that song from 2022? It's back, baby. They're ready to run it back, and they are deeper than ever before, right? They've yet to win in 2026, recording two 1-0 losses to the Ivory Coast and Japan, but they have to feel like even if they can't get out of the group in the top two, get a good game against Haiti or anybody else, and they might have a half chance to get into the third place spot. How do we feel about the Scottish team?
Yeah, tough group for them to get into here, but at the same time, I think there is, as I talked about with Haiti, there's opportunity for them. This is not the strongest Brazilian squad. Who knows what's going to happen with Morocco with the coach change? So that opens the door for Scotland to come in here and make some noise and really be a bracket buster, if you will. Um, Talented team for sure. I feel like despite the fact that they haven't won in 2026, I mean, their competition was strong. Like Japan is a very, very solid team, and Ivory Coast, if you followed African qualifying, was a juggernaut in that. So those are not competitions where I would be, ready to blow it up over them losing both of those games. But at the end of the day, still, those are games that they're going to eventually need to win because even if you get out of this group, you're going to just continuously face tougher competition. So, going to need to see them step up. And one player that I would like to see step up for them in those types of games is the man that they named the country after, Scott McTominay. He's the guy that I'm
That
going for here. Yeah, you like that one?
was
Uh,
good.
I'm going for him here. I think he's had a really good season for Napoli this year. Finished second in Serie A. Had 14 goals in all competitions. I mean, that's more than some strikers are getting, and he is doing it from the midfield, which I think is very impressive. Although that's always kind of been his forte. I think he's going to be a super important player for Scotland, and I'm very interested to see what he brings to the table for them. He's the guy that I think is going to need to step up in those tougher competitions where he has not so far in those games against like Brazil and Ivory Coast. When it comes down to those, playing against Morocco, playing against Brazil, he's gonna need to be the guy that really runs the show for them, in my opinion.
Yep. I again, because Lewis Morgan has not been included, there are no MLS names in the list. But I agree. I went with one of Scotty McSauce or Billy Gilmore, right? I actually focused my stats on Scotty McTominay because again, very, very good in Napoli, right? You mentioned it, 13 goal contributions, 10 goals for Napoli from center mid is crazy. He's got 14 goals for his country. You don't like to think any team as a one man, wrecking ball crew, but if he isn't at his best, you're going to see this team struggle. It's going to run through him, and he needs to be at the top for sure. All right. There's only one group in this episode that matters, and that's Group D. The USA, Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey. We've talked a lot about the USA, so I want to start with Paraguay first. We'll move USA to the back because we talk about them all the time. They're 40. We're going to start with Paraguay. They're 40th in the world, making their first appearance since 2010. They made it to the quarterfinals in that one, and that was their best ever finish. Led by 63-year-old Argentine Gustavo Alfaro, qualifying as the sixth place finisher in CONMEBOL, nabbing that last spot with 28 points from 7 wins and 7 draws, just 4 losses. And again, we talk about how hard it is to qualify for the World Cup. Imagine playing 18 games, losing just 4 of them, and being on the verge of going into a qualifying round. That is insane. So, how do we feel about Paraguay? We think that this is a good year for them?
They're such an interesting team because, and maybe this is just the MLS side that's making me feel this way, but it just feels like they always have a lot of talented players that just can never string it together. I feel like they're always a little bit underwhelming, and they really can't be in this World Cup because they're in a group that they can get out of. Like every single team in this group has a chance to top the group, and every single team in this group has a chance to finish dead last. Like it is very, I would say, level across all teams, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a very competitive group. Anybody can get out of this group on top, including Paraguay. Um, One of the players that I'm focusing on here for them, and I'm absolutely a shill. I'm not even going to pretend I'm not. I'm going for the bias pick here. Julio Enciso, Chelsea legend, now Strasbourg legend, so basically Chelsea B legend. 12 goals, 9 assists for them or across all competitions this season for Strasbourg. Um, Very good results there. I mean, 21 goal contributions is a fantastic result to get. And I think he's going to be a super important player for Paraguay, depending on what his role is going to be, where he's going to be playing, whether it's a secondary striker, if he's going to be playing on the wing, is he going to be playing as the forward? But he's coming in good form. He finished the season with 1 goal and 4 assists in his last 3 games. So going to be coming in with good form. I think that'll be beneficial for them. I think he's going to be a massively important player in their attack.
You're well aware Enciso's never played for Chelsea, right?
Uh, has he? I thought he made at
No,
least an appearance.
no, he hasn't.
I
Brighton
could have sworn he was
Ipswich.
in like a not a Premier League game, but I could have sworn he was in like a maybe he was in the
Uh,
squad. Maybe that's what I'm confusing it with.
Euro snob, Chelsea shill, completely disregard the MLS player on his MLS team that he could have gone for, and then pick somebody who never even played for his team.
Yeah, what about
He
I'm gonna
just,
pick Mickey as he's been in like the worst form of his entire career. I'm not gonna
yeah,
do
that's one to
that.
watch for sure. One to watch
No,
for
I don't
sure.
want to
Can he pick it
highlight it.
up on
I'm
the
trying
biggest
to brush it under
stage?
the rug.
Oh man. Well, listen. Lots of MLS flair on this World Cup roster, right? Or the preliminary, at least. It's not been official yet. But Orlando's Brian Ojeda, Vancouver's Andres Cubas, Atlanta duo Miguel Almiron and Matias Galarraza. Former MLS names: Carlos Coronel, Kaku, Diego Gomez, Rodney Redes. Lots of names in this provisional roster or preliminary roster that would be big in this group if they were to be called up. The one that I am going to keep an eye on is Diego Gomez, right? So clearly talented, 5 goals and 31 appearances, but he had a bit of a knock on his knee right at the end of the season. Got back into it a bit and may play in the last game on the weekend, but the question for me is he going to be fit enough to get the nod? And if he is, what sort of level will he be at? If he's at his top, Paraguay is going to be okay. But without him, I think they're going to struggle a little bit. Up next, we'll go to Australia, the 27th ranked team. They qualified, finishing second in Group C of the AFC qualifying, finishing 5-4-1 on 19 points above Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, China, and Bahrain. Led by 52-year-old Australian Tony Popovich, they have recorded two big wins in 2026, 1-0 over Cameroon, 5-1 over Curaçao. They have never gotten out of the round of 16 in their history, but they're hoping that this could be the chance. Do you think that Australia are primed to move on from this group?
I mean, as I said before, I think anybody's got a shot to get out of this group for sure. I mean, I think anybody's got a shot to top the group, Australia included. I mean, they are one of the bigger teams in Asia, and I mean, I think they have. I was actually talking, funny enough, I was actually talking about this with Matt as we were watching the NYC game because NYC's got some, Australian representation in there, and he was talking to me about some of the players and how they've been playing well. So I mean, all stuff to consider as the team goes into the World Cup this season. I really do feel like they have a shot to get out of this group. Um, it may not be the easiest because, as I said, it's going to be very competitive. But one of the guys that I'm focusing on for them, and I'm doing a little bit of a. I think you know who he is. You've told me about him before, but um, I've watched a lot of football manager videos on YouTube, and the main guy for that is Zealand, and he got the opportunity to do introduce this guy for his new team. I'm going for Nestori Irigkunda, another legendary name, by the way. Awesome name. Um, but for those that saw the video, he got introduced for his transfer to Watford in the championship. I think he played a ton for them this last season, not necessarily starting every game, but he made 40 appearances just in the championship alone, playing about 2,000 minutes and had 9 goal contributions. Not blowing anything off the like he's not blowing anything out of the water, but that's solid enough stats that I think he's going to be an important piece for them, especially because he's been playing a ton for them in their latest friendlies. Again, not necessarily starting in every game, but I think he's going to be a factor, and he's done well for them. In the start that he had against New Zealand, he scored. In the start against Canada, he scored, and then in a 23-minute sub appearance in the latest game against Curacao, he had 2 goals in those 23 minutes. So I think he could be definitely, even if he's not necessarily starting, I think he could be an explosive option for them off the bench.
Yeah, and you mentioned there is a ton of MLS on this roster, right? And it hasn't been announced yet, so potential. Lucas Harrington and Kai Riles in the back, Aiden O'Neill and Kai Trewin in the midfield, as well as Patrick Yazbek joins him in there. Ariath Piol up top, and then you got some former MLS names in Milos Dejenik and Riley McGree. If you know, you know. Do you know?
Riley McGree. I can
You
I
don't know.
do I remember him, but you're gonna destroy me for this. I remember him, but for his time in Europe, not for his time in Major League Soccer. I'm pretty sure he came
Oh,
over from Middlesbrough or something like that.
he was Charlotte's first signing, and without playing a single game, they sold him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Um, Again, we can't pick a player from the official team, but I'm going to keep my eye on Lucas Harrington. I'm assuming he's going to be there, but he has been absolutely electric for Colorado this year, and is a guy that people are saying he was signed 6 months ago, and he might be gone after the World Cup. He's that good. So I'm very interested to see if he can use this to step up and be a part of the big picture of Australia, and then get that move coming up uh, as soon as he can, and make Colorado some big, big money. It's time to talk about the Turks. 22nd overall Turkey A in the tournament for the first time since 2002, where they finished third place. And the only time, I'm sorry, it's only the third time in their history that they've made it. Literally went 40 years without qualifying, showed up, finished third, then waited another 20 years to qualify again. They qualified via the playoffs after finishing second in a group with Spain, Georgia, and Bulgaria. They beat Romania and Kosovo 1-0 each to make it to the final day, and they were led by 51-year-old Italian manager Vincenzo Montella. They have a mix of youth and experience that may bode well in this tournament. No games outside of World Cup qualifying in 2026. Do you think that this is going to be the toughest team that we see in the group for the U.S.?
I do. I mean, again, as much as I talk about this being a very competitive group, I do feel like Turkey is going to be the toughest team as a US fan. There's a lot of really talented players in this Turkish team. But the one thing I will say in favor of maybe a little bit of optimism here is I do feel like Turkey's another one of those teams where it's like you have such high expectations for them going in because you see a lot of like really strong players on the roster and then they kind of let you down a little bit. So very interested to see what they do here because there is a very good chance for them to top this group. I mean, they are very talented. Look no further than my player to watch here, Arda Güler, playing for Real Madrid. He has been, I mean, fantastic for them. 6 goals, 14 assists, 3,255 minutes played across all competitions this season for them. And he's only 21 years old. I mean, 21 years old, he's got 28 caps for Turkey already. He is going to be so, so important for them no matter what role he's being asked to play. Midfield, winger, attacking mid, doesn't matter. I really think everything is going to roll through him. He's going to get a lot of attention, a lot of focus. Probably interested to see how that plays out for him because I think at Madrid, it's easier for him to kind of like fall like in the shadows because there's so many other people to focus on. But here, he's going to be the focus, in my opinion. So, what is that going to look like for him? How is that going to affect his game? I still think he's going to be super talented player in this World Cup, but he's going to make or break the Turkish attack for me.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? And unfortunately, it doesn't really matter because since they announced their preliminary roster devoid of MLS talent, they're going to finish dead last. We know that. We know how this thing works. So, in terms of player, I'm keeping an eye on. You mentioned Arda Güler. Totally fair. For me, I'm actually looking at the other young, exciting attacker. It's Juve winger Kenan Yildiz. He had 17 goals and assists across 36 games for a side that, admittedly, they didn't do as well as they would have liked in the Serie A for Juve, but uh, he is somebody who is in really good form, creating lots of chances. If he can find a little bit better form heading into the tournament, I think he's going to cause havoc for the back lines. I'm very, very excited to see that. All right, let's finish this group up then with the 16th ranked United States, which I can't believe we're a top 20 team. This is criminal. We're so bad. Um, the boys in red, white, and blue, you know the coach, you know the players, you know the history. We're not going to give you all of those details. If you watch the show, we go over it all the time. But we do have a roster that was leaked. And what we see out of that leaked roster is a very thin midfield, no young players, and the inclusion of a Gio Reyna who's played 400 minutes all years. When you saw the roster, what was your initial thought?
I mean, most of it I think was expected. I mean, I think majority are guys that we had predicted would be called into the team. So in those circumstances, I think it makes sense. I think having Miles Robinson in there, which I don't necessarily agree with because he's in terrible form right now. FCC cannot stop leaking goals. Kind of indicates that I think he's gonna go with Poch is gonna go with a three center back formation, which
Mhm.
is good. I think that's a good sign. Like if you're gonna bring five center backs, you better be going with a three back formation because that's way too many to do a two back. So to me, that's a sign that he's probably gonna run with the five back, three center backs, which has worked well for us. So I'm glad from that perspective. But still think maybe we could have gone a different direction than Miles Robinson right now if we're going based on form, but I'm not gonna, hang my hat on arguing that Miles Robinson has should be nowhere near the team. Kind of wish I mean, I'd predicted or I'd mentioned that I wanted to see Aiden Morris in this team. I'm disappointed that he's not going to be there. Especially as you mentioned, thin midfield. He could have been helpful in that regard in terms of bolstering at least the depth, even if he's not going to be a starter there. Clearly went for the hot hand in certain circumstances, like with Zendejas, playing very well at the club level. I don't necessarily disagree, but he has also not been very productive in a USA shirt so far. But interested to see what that means for formations. Does that mean we're going to be going in the winger direction more often? Because I know he's a winger. He's not necessarily a number 10. Not to say that he can't play there, but maybe that opens the door to them playing more wide. So to me, it said more about the shape of the way we're going to play than it did necessarily the quality of player that they're bringing in.
I've got two issues with the group, right? We've taken Gio Reyna over Diego Luna. I don't like it, right? Diego Luna has been here for 17 of 18 games. He's worked, I mean, he's been a little bit of an injury concern, right? But RSL have been dealing with that just to get him into the World Cup. Gio Reyna has not earned this role. And I understand the whole potential, right? The give him 15 minutes, you see what he ends up doing. I still don't love it. I'm not gonna cry over it. I think, I do think Reyna, if you put him in there, is gonna be able to do enough. But if you're picking a guy like, and let me take a step back. It's really going to be, what do you think is going to be happening in this team? Are you going to be defending leads where Diego Luna is going to work hard defending, dropping all the way back to the left back spot to defend? Or are you going to be chasing games where you're going to need somebody like Reyna to create chances? It's pretty clear Poch feels like we're going to need to create chances more than defend them. And that's where that came from. It is what it is. The big thing for me is the fact that we took 7 players capable of playing center back to a tournament of this magnitude, and we only took 4 holding midfielders, 2 of them being Berhalter and Roldan, where we can have our arguments, we rank them, and we put them in our top 5, and that's fine. But Aiden Morris being left off without having Tanner Tessman there, right? Tanner Tessman was our number 2 or number 3 player, both of us, and he had an injury. Knocking him off means that Aiden Morris should have gone. But the issue is the fact that you took a Miles Robinson when you had the 5 center backs you took, the trusty Mackenzie Ream, Richards, who
Richard.
may or may not be healthy, right? Then you have Joe Scally who can play there, and Alex Freeman who can play there. And I think there's one more center back on the roster. Oh yeah, the 7th player being Miles Robinson. You didn't need him there, and you could have flipped in and put Aiden Morris in there. And again, I didn't put Aiden Morris in my top 5. I didn't put him on my roster. I thought he was off because Tessman was in. But without Tessman, you had to bring in Morris. And we are now 1 yellow card or 1 injury away from having a big issue in the middle of the park for a home World Cup and getting embarrassed. And that's a problem for me. I don't love it. I think that he, and again, whatever the shape turns out to be, sure. But, the drop off from being it, McKinney's been an attacking player this whole window. You're now going to either drop him to an 8, or you're saying Berhalter or Roldan can do the job. And again, as much as I love Berhalter and Roldan, we've watched them play against the biggest teams, and they've been out of their element. I wanted them on the team as depth guys, not as 90-minute starters. I'm worried. I think this might be a problem. We're also in a really unique position I want to get your thoughts on before we go to Group E. Obviously, the United States have played a ton of friendlies in 2025. Every one of our group opponents we've played. We have experience against them. In your opinion, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
No, it's definitely a good thing. I mean, you get, even if they're experimenting in the game that you're playing against them, you get some experience with the guys that are going to be in there. You kind of get a feel for how they play. And it's only 90 minutes. I'm not saying you're like, this is not a guy you're training with week in, week out, or you play, twice every year. It still is helpful, I think. You get some familiarity with like, okay, this guy likes to play physical. So like I can expect that if I'm going up against him in the World Cup. You can make the argument like they can have the same thing the other way around. Like they are playing against you and they're going to get experience with how you like to play. But
Hmm.
I think just having that knowledge is going to be helpful, especially if you're on paper supposed to be one of the better teams. I think it's going to be helpful for any knowledge that you can get. I think is going to be helpful for kind of solidifying you as one of the stronger, more favorite teams out of the group. So I'd say it's a benefit.
Yeah, I think for me, as long as they don't go into it expecting the same results, right? They won 2 of them, they lost 1. If they don't go into it thinking, oh, we've already beaten them, we're fine, then yeah, you're right. You learn, you adapt, you get better. But if they're like any other American I know who looks at the past record and says, we beat them once, we'll do it again, no problem. I think we're in trouble. So we'll see how they go in there. Again, we're not going to go through all the MLS players and things there, but players to keep an eye on. It's going to be Gio Reyna. It's going to be nobody, right? Will he show up? Will he play the game? I think we go to Group E now, and it consists of some interesting teams, right? Germany leading the way as the favorites of the group, but the battle for second between Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador is going to be very interesting. Let's start with the 10th ranked Germans. They qualified as the winners of UEFA Group A. They beat out Slovakia and Northern Ireland, led by 38-year-old Julian Nagelsmann. They are one of the favorites in the tournament, a four-time champion, who were most recently kings of the world in 2014, but have failed to get out of the group stage in the last two tournaments. They're going to look to improve significantly this time around, but I want to pose this question to you before we move on to some players. An interesting note, Julian Nagelsmann, 38, he is going to be managing a handful of players right around his age, and one that's actually his elder, 40-year-old, 2 years after retiring from the German national team. Manuel Neuer is back in the fold. He takes a spot, somewhat controversially, some may say, of Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who both won the league with Barcelona in Spain and also got relegated as a member of Girona's team while on loan. Do you think it was the right move to bring a 2 years out of retirement and often injured Manuel Neuer into this team to take over for whoever the goalkeeper crew is?
I mean, I'd be a hypocrite to say that it's a mistake, considering the entire Neymar conversation that we
You
just
just
had.
wax poetic
So,
about a guy who hasn't played in 3 years.
yeah, so I'm gonna have to, stay true to that and say that it's not a mistake to bring him in, and I think his experience will be helpful for the team. Even though a lot of these guys have played in a World Cup before, they may not necessarily have made it as deep as Neuer has made it before. So I don't think it's necessarily a mistake, and I think if you're going to make the argument of, you know, I don't know what Neuer's role is going to be. Is he going to be starting? Is he goalkeeper three? I'm not close enough to the German national team to really know that. If he's just brought in to be goalkeeper three, I mean, I think we're fighting over nothing right now. I mean, I think if that's the case, then he's the right call because he's going to be somebody that can bring experience to this team and maybe even from a coaching perspective help out because I don't think Nagelsmann, again, similar to Ancelotti, has coached for a World Cup before.
My issue is I'm almost certain he's going to be a starter. You don't bring in somebody like that for a goalkeeper three role when you anticipate using that for a young goalkeeper or somebody who's earned their spot through, their performances, right? I don't disagree that if you put him in there, he's going to be fine for you. But Neuer only played 22 times a season. He actually hasn't hit 25 league appearances in like 4 years. He's been constantly dealing with little injury here, little injury there. Then he had that leg fracture that was really bad. Um, he notched 7 clean sheets in a very uncompetitive Bundesliga season, and we know that. We talked about that already. You had Alexander Nubel, who played every single match, picking up 11 clean sheets as Stuttgart achieved Champions League football, and Oliver Baumann, who's been the number one through qualifying, played every game for Hoffenheim as they clinched Europa League. I'm not saying Neuer is a bad option. Having goal, obviously he's world class and he's a great goalkeeper. He won the league, what have you. But you've been prepping 2 years without him, and now you're just telling Oliver Baumann, who in his own right is 35 years old. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oliver Baumann's 35 years old. He's been working his whole life behind Manuel Neuer to be the number two. Marc-Andre ter Stegen falls out of form. He's the guy in qualifying. Think he's going to play the World Cup, and they tell him, "Hey, sorry, we're bringing in Manuel anyway to finish it up." It feels like it might do something wrong to the dressing room if they're not all on the same page. The team aspect is more interesting than the player ability to me. That's what I'm kind of hung up on here, and I'm very interested to see if you see them again. A team aspect, by the way, that hasn't gotten out of the group in the last two World Cups, right? So you're bringing in a whole new group trying to right the wrongs of the past 8 years, and you're like, oh, by the way, the guy, I know you've done all the hard work to get us here, but we're going to bring in the guy who was a part of those two cycles where we didn't get out of the World Cup at 40 years old, and he's going to take over for you. I'm not sure I love that.
I mean, to the point that you just mentioned about them not getting out of the group stage in the last two World Cups, that to me is the reason you bring Neuer in because a lot of these guys are younger and probably did not experience a deep run in the World Cup. So Neuer has and can definitely be somebody that they can lean on in situations where you are making a deeper run. So that to me is the reason you bring him on.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's one or the other. So we'll see. It was Marc-Andre ter Stegen in a form where he needed to be called in? Probably not, right? But is Neuer the right answer for that? I don't know, right? But anyways, speaking of the team, right, and the team aspect, the group once again decided not to bring any MLS players, so they probably won't get out of the group again. Sucks. But player to watch for me, Leonard Carl. Okay, Germany is one of the teams that is smart enough to bring their most impressive teenagers, right? Unlike the USA. And he is the definition of impressive, right? I've watched him play for Bayern a few times. He has played in so many different spots and excelled at all of them. You can play him in the midfield, you can play him on the wing, you can play him at right back, and he's great at all of them. I'm not sure he's going to get a ton of minutes, but if he does, he's going to be must watch. I'm so excited. I hope he gets a ton of time.
My player to watch, I'm going for a guy that got a lot of criticism at the start of the year, but I think ultimately had a solid season. I'm going for Florian Wirtz here, a guy that probably because of the price tag and also because of the performances got destroyed at the start of the year. I mean, he was pretty poor for Liverpool, just could not contribute to anything on the attack. But when you look at the end of the year, he seemed to find a bit of form. And I'm not saying he had like a legendary season for Liverpool, but he still finished the year with 17 goal contributions and he played a ton for them. So I think that's going to be helpful because when he is on his game, he is electric. And even for Germany as well. They had a friendly recently against Switzerland where they scored 4 goals. He scored two of them himself and he assisted the other two. So he's going to be massively important for them in the attack. So very interested to see if he kind of falls back to that beginning of the season form, if he continues to play better as he has been towards the middle and end of the season.
I like it. I like it. They need to get out of the group. If they don't get out of the group, it is going to be a problem. So,
Yep.
let's move on then to the 82nd ranked team, Curacao, who are in their first ever World Cup. Undoubtedly, it's going to be a monumental task to get out of the group, but the experience is going to be unforgettable. They're led by 78-year-old Dutchman Dick Advocate, who has coached nearly everywhere, mostly in the Netherlands, but he also has a ton of international experience. He was in charge of the Netherlands, the UAE, South Korea, Belgium, Russia, Serbia, Iraq, and now Curacao. I've pronounced this country's like names 7 different ways, by the way, so one of them's got to be right.
One of them's got to be right.
Coaching experience will not be an issue for this team, but their players might be. They qualified by winning Group B in the CONCACAF qualifiers, beating out Jamaica, Trinidad, and Bermuda, but a very Netherlands heavy influence on their team. They don't have any MLS players currently, but 2 former MLSers and 2 current USL players. It's Eloy Room in goal and podcast legend Jurgen Lakadia making the team. Adam rolling in his podcast grave, both playing for Miami FC in the USL Championship. Lovely, lovely stuff. Is there any chance for this group?
I mean, I'm never going to say no. You really have no idea what's going to happen in 3 games, but it's going to be monumentally hard. Very similar to Haiti. It's going to be a pipe dream for them to get out of this group. But I'm not going to count that anything, honestly, when it comes to a World Cup. So um, I'll jump into my player to watch here for me. And it's been a theme for a lot of these teams that are on the outside looking in. I've gone for the experienced player for them because I think that'll be a big player for like the team to rest on because I feel like the younger guys can get a bit overwhelmed, especially going up against some of these like really talented, well-known superstars. But I've gone for Leandro Bacuna here, um,
Nice.
who has played a ton at the club level and has been it bounced around a bunch of places, but I think is most known for his time in England and his time with Groningen in the Netherlands. But he has made 68 appearances for Curacao, 16 goals. As I mentioned, he's highly experienced. I think he's going to be an important leader on this team if they're going to get anything out of this group. So I think he's going to be a focal. I mean, he's going to be playing as well. I would imagine he's not one of those veteran guys that's going to be like getting sparse minutes and is really there just to like kind of help coach and manage things. Like he's the captain. He's going to be out there for probably close to 90 minutes every game. So very important player for them, I'd imagine.
Yep, I had him on my short list as well. Special shout out to Cuco Martina, who Everton legend and Curacao citizenship. I don't think is going to make the cut, but currently playing in Curacao with Victory Boys. Um, Everton put Curacao on the map, really, if you think about it. Um, a player for me to keep an eye on is going from the back line because, as you can imagine, this is going to be a group that has to do a lot of defending. So I'm going with Armando Obispo. He's a rotation center back for PSV, but he did nab 2 goals in the Eredivisie. He was part of the PSV side that handily won the Dutch league, clear of 19 points. I mean, this league was over 2 months ago, and he wasn't a mainstay in the team, but that sort of experience, winning leagues and being so dominant, might do well in this group to have to deal with tough moments, kind of like you were mentioning. But yeah, this is going to be tough for them, no doubt. 34th overall, Ivory Coast is next. They're the next member of Africa. They are long past the days of Gervinho, Yaya Toure, and Didier Drogba, but this group is still going to be exciting and fun to watch. They won Group F in the CAF qualifying above the likes of Gabon, Gambia, Kenya, Burundi, and Seychelles. They qualify for their fourth ever World Cup since 2014, led by 42-year-old Emerse Faye, a former center mid for the national team in his own right before retiring in 2012. He's going to look to get out of the group for the first time ever. This one does have a final roster in, and there are no MLS players, which is lame. But what are your thoughts on the team? And then give me your player to watch.
Yeah, I mean, this is a dark horse team, in my opinion. I think they're going to be a handful for everybody to deal with. If you followed African qualifying, you will
You
know
say
that
that a
this,
lot. Did you follow African qualifying? Like,
I
was that the
did.
reason you're not watching a lot of games? You just sat there at 3 a.m. watching, you know, Burundi versus
Well,
Burkina Faso.
it was wild. Like I'm not going to go into everything that happened, but it is absolutely worth a watch or a read on everything that happened in African qualifying because it was wild, like insane. But anyway, their group was a two-horse race, and the other, I think, three teams in their group were pretty much non-competitive. But the race between Gabon and Ivory Coast was wild. Like they had to take every single point. As you said, if one of those teams dropped points at all, they were done. They were not going to qualify, or they were going to have to go through the knockout, which is so unpredictable. And Ivory Coast, no matter how much pressure Gabon was putting on them, just kept winning game after game. And they topped their group in really impressive fashion. And I think are going to be a handful for teams to deal with. They are a talented team. One of the players that I've gone for as my player to watch here, somebody that I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of role they play with the team, if they're going to be starting, if they're going to be coming off the bench. But I've gone for Simon Adingra, who has been playing for Monaco this last season, playing with our buddy Flo Bello up top, and has been in and out of the Ivory Coast squad, but has been playing in their two most recent friendlies where he started in the game against South Korea and their 4-0 win against South Korea, mind you, where he scored a goal and then made a sub appearance in their 1-0 win against Scotland. But he is a winger that I think has a lot of potential to be especially even off the bench, an explosive option for them and a game changer for them if he is not starting. And if he is starting, again, I think it depends on the day with him a lot, but if he's on his game, he's going to be very difficult to deal with. It's just a question of if he's going to be on his game. Because if he's not, then I think he's going to be um, somebody that's easy for a lot of these teams to deal with.
Yeah, like I said, I think there are a lot of interesting names here, but for me, it's going to be the US born Jan Diamande. So interesting. This guy pops up a lot on the anti-MLS. This is why we need pro rel because this guy fell through the cracks and look at what he's doing now. Blah 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 blah. Right, but he played through. He moved over to the U.S., then moved back to Spain before signing with RB Leipzig in Germany. And ever since he joined, he's been electric. At just 19 years old, he has 21 goal contributions in 33 Bundesliga games. He's one of the most exciting teenagers in the game at this point. Not named Julian Hall, of course, but I hope he shines here because it would be such a cool thing to see him take that next step forward. I'll be keeping an eye on him very, very closely as Ivory Coast play their games. Let's finish up the group with Ecuador. It is the 23rd ranked Ecuador in their fifth ever World Cup, which is weird because they feel like they have such talent, but that just shows you how tough it is to get out of CONMEBOL. They've only gotten out of the group once in those 5 World Cups, and they got to have a good feeling that this is probably their best chance to do that yet and go even farther than just out of the group. Second place finishers in CONMEBOL, only behind Argentina. Exciting talent. They have big goals in 2026. Do you think they will reach them?
I think it's going to be tough. As I said, I'm high on this Ivory Coast team, and Germany's always going to be difficult to deal with, even if they've been knocked out of the last two groups in the World Cups. Um, it's going to be tough. I think they got a decent shot, regardless of. I think the third place team in this group has a decent shot at getting through, but Ecuador's another team that you just cannot sleep on. They're very talented. One of those players, and again, I'm going the shill route, especially because they haven't announced a roster as far as I know. Moises Caicedo. I mean, the guy is just a monster in the midfield. He is so good, even if Chelsea have been so bad this season. Caicedo is always just such a good player. He kind of reminds me of N'Golo Kante for Chelsea back when he was kind of in his prime. So if you're having a player like that on your team, he's going to be so important, whether it's going forward or in defense. I mean, he's mostly from a defensive perspective for Caicedo, but having to deal with guys like Florian Wirtz and whoever is playing for Germany, Kai Havertz or whatever, it's going to be tough, and you're going to need a guy like Caicedo that's going to help manage that. So I think he's going to be so important for Ecuador to make a push to get out of this group.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm there too, right? But they're led by a 45-year-old Argentine, Sebastian Beccaceche. Sure. And you're right, they haven't announced a full roster yet, but there is one player who's on the provisional roster who has been kind of in the mix, and that's Brian Ramirez out of FCC. A couple of former MLS players as well, Alan Franco, Jordi Alcivar, and Pedro Vite in there. Um, but I'm with you, man. Moises Caicedo is my player to watch. This dude is one of the best center defensive mids in the world. I loved watching him at the Club World Cup last year, and he just gives N'Golo Kante vibes, right? Get in, win the ball, give it back, cover ground, do all the hard work, and let the other people do the other stuff. He's going to be massive to their success. He was 4 years ago, excuse me, and he will be this year as well. All right, let's finish this episode up with Group F, and we're going to start with the Netherlands in the seventh ranked team in the world. They topped UEFA Group G to get here, beating Poland, Finland, Malta, and Lithuania. Yikes, what a death group that was. They've never won the tournament, but they've had multiple top four finishes, including second in 2010 and third in 2014. Then they missed out on 2018 before returning to the quarterfinals in 2022, and they will look to get their hands on that trophy for the first time ever. Led by legendary Everton manager, 63-year-old Dutchman Ronald Koeman, who has a host of talent to pick from to make the team that will win the World Cup for the Netherlands. They've yet to announce their roster, but lots of names that are going to make headlines. Do you think that they have what it takes to get to that final game and win?
I mean, they're always going to be a strong team. They're definitely not a team that you could just like take lightly. They're going to be a team that, if they're playing at their best, is going to be making a deep run in the World Cup. But I don't know if they quite have enough on paper to say that they're gonna be in like that championship contender category. To me, I feel like they're maybe a step below that. Um, but who knows? I may be wildly off on that.
All right, and I'll just jump in here real quick and then give you a player to watch for me. And I think, again, not knowing that what the roster looks like and who gets in there, I kind of went with more of a safer pick. I feel like a guy that's pretty good about one, going to be there, and two, making a noteworthy impact is going to be Man City's Tijani Reinders. Pronunciation, somebody help me. The Man City midfielder at least won the FA Cup this year. He made 27 appearances, scoring 5 times. He won't have to carry the load altogether in this group, but I do think he'll be a difference maker in very specific moments that are going to decide success in these tough games. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the fine margins once you get down to the quarterfinals, the 8, the 4, the finals, right? Is do you have the difference makers in split second moments that change the game in your favor? And I think he can be one of those players.
Yeah, I'll give mine really quick here. So I'm gonna go with Ryan Gravenberch, another midfielder for the Dutch team here. A guy that really, I feel like I remember just struggling to get consistent game time when he first came over to Liverpool. I could be wrong, but um, certainly has found his footing in the last two seasons, and this season especially. I mean, he has played almost 4,200 minutes for them in all competitions, so he has been playing nearly every minute for Liverpool this season. And while Liverpool haven't exactly had their strongest year, especially coming off the title in 25,
Bums.
he has still been a consistently good player for them. And considering how much he's been playing, I think he's going to be coming in. Interesting to see if he's going to be coming in with fatigue or if he's going to be, the more in shape player compared to a lot of the other guys that are maybe, like a Gio Reyna who's only got a couple hundred minutes. So interesting to see what kind of. I'm more interested to see like what kind of shape he comes in.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and again, it's all going to be the moments, right? It's are you up for it? Are you fit enough to do it, right? So let's move in to the 18th ranked team in the world. That's Japan out of Asia, making their seventh straight finals appearance, looking to get out of the round of 16 for the first time ever. The first non-host country to qualify all the way back in March 2025. They won the third round Group C in Asia qualifying, beating out the same host of teams that Australia did, right? When they were in the same group. We talked about that before. They're led by longtime manager Hajime Moriyasu, and they're going to look to get into the tournament and make some noise, which is what all USMNT accounts would love because they are just needing some free reign to continue screaming, we need to do everything like Japan does. Look at how well they do things, even though they've not done anything more significant than we have in the last, I don't know, whenever they've started playing football. So thoughts on Japan's team and a player to watch?
Yeah, I mean, a really exciting team, a really fun team, a lot of names in there that are going to be ones that if you follow the sport enough, you'll recognize, and I think they're a team that's going to be competitive in any group that you put them in. I think in this one especially, I think they're on paper maybe a little bit worse than Netherlands, but I think they have just as good a chance as anybody else in this group at being able to top the group. The player that I've picked to watch, I've gone for Takefusa Kubo, a name that if you remember from a few years ago was one that was blowing up everywhere. I mean, he was like the next Japanese Messi at some point. And that didn't exactly pan out with his move to Real Madrid. I don't think he actually ever made an official appearance for Real Madrid, but seems to have found a
Mm-hmm.
home a bit in Real Sociedad. And while he hasn't had necessarily the best season, he is still getting a lot more consistent game time. And I believe last year he had a pretty strong year for them. Yeah, it looks like 11 goal contributions and like 3,500 minutes played for a good Sociedad team. So seems to have found some footing, seems to have found a foothold and getting consistent game time. I think that's going to be crucial for Japan as they're coming off, I believe, five straight wins at the international level too. So going to be interesting to see what kind of role he plays for them.
Yeah, I've actually gone with somebody on the other side of the field, and that is the goalkeeper, Zion Suzuki. He's a Parma goalkeeper, but he was born in Newark, New Jersey. And he was the focus of dual national chats for a little bit when we were like, oh, we have no goalkeepers. We got to go get this guy who plays in Europe, right? Um, he was the go-to guy for them in all of qualifying. He doesn't have a ton of clean sheets over the last few seasons, but he is a consistent starter when he's healthy, and he's going to be a big part of this team's defensive setup. I'm just interested to see what the hype about this kid was because I've never seen him play before, but everybody with a blue check mark on Twitter was like, we need to go get this guy right now, and if we don't, it's the biggest loss US has ever seen until we actually lost him, and then it was, no, actually, this is the biggest guy, and then we lose him, and it's like, oh, no, right? I don't know anything about this kid. I don't know what the hype is about, but I'd love to see if he's got a bit about him. Alrighty. We're going to go to the team that probably is going to finish dead last because they chose to leave Red Bull legend Emil Forsberg off of their team, and that is Sweden, 38th ranked in the world. Um, like I said, if you don't have a Red Bull star, you are destined for failure. So I think everybody's going to suck, really. I don't think anybody got called up. I think Paraguay are probably primed because they're closest, and then USA wins because they've got the most former Red Bull guys. So I like it. They are in their first tournament since 2018 and only the second since 2006. They were runners up at home in 1958. And they have a few second and third place finishes in their history. They qualified as the winners of the B path of the playoffs, beating Ukraine and Poland 3-1 and 3-2. They're scoring goals for fun and are going to look to continue at the World Cup. Connor, familiar face for you in charge of the Swedes. It's Englishman Graham Potter. Which makes sense why he left his best player off because he just really isn't that good of a manager, is he? Right?
No,
No
he is
other
not.
MLS, no other MLS or former MLS ones in here. So you're just gonna have to pick from the Euro-based players. Lame. Give me your thoughts on Graham Potter's Sweden and maybe a player that we should keep an eye on.
Yeah, never count out Graham Potter to take a team to the basement floor. So I don't know. My expectations for Sweden might be a little bit lower. There might be some bias in there. I'm not gonna lie. But as you talked about with a high flying attack, I'm going for an attacking player as my player to watch. I'm going for Anthony Elanga here, and he has had a pretty disappointing year for Newcastle this year. 2,100 minutes, only 5 goal contributions for them in 49 appearances. A bit disappointing. Seems to be making a lot of sub appearances, not necessarily starts, but the year prior to that, if he can find that form again, he was electric. I mean, he had 17 goal contributions just in the Prem alone. So we know the potential's there. He's an excellent winger. There was a point in time last season for Forest where he had 6 straight games with a goal contribution. So if you're getting that version of Anthony Elanga, I do not count them out to be a contender to top this group. If you're getting current season Anthony Elanga, that's going to be a big loss for them. So interested to see what kind of quality he's bringing to them.
Yeah, I like it. I actually went again to the other side of the field. You know me, I'm more of a defensive guy anyway. Um, this group has guys like Alanga, Gyökeres, and Isaac or Isak that should be fine for them going forward, but they're going to need to find a way to keep the ball out of the net. So I'm keeping my eyes on Captain Victor Lindelof. Man United made his name known, but he's been a rotation player for Villa this year. The question for me is he going to be in top form coming into the tournament such that they can make a deep run, right? When you're not playing every week in and out, your form drops, your sharpness drops. You know, as you know, playing Football Manager, you know that that's a very big part. But is he going to be at that level where he can actually make a difference game after game, or really just in a quick 3 game run? All right, and then we finish up with the final team of the group, the final team of the episode. It's Tunisia. I almost grabbed their scarf off the wall, but I couldn't find it. I think it's right there, actually, next to Toronto. But I didn't do it because we had the U.S. we had to talk about. Led by 54-year-old Frenchman Sabri Lamouchi. Since the beginning of the year, this is technically the lowest ranked team in the group, but I feel like they should have a solid chance, or feel like they have a solid chance to get out of the group itself, right? They topped AFCON's Group H over the likes of Namibia, Liberia, Malawi, Equatorial Guinea, and Sao Tome and Principe. I am learning that countries exist. Cool. Uh, they went unbeaten in their qualifying, and they are in their 7th tournament and 3rd in a row, looking to get out of the group for the first time. They do have a final squad announced, and we have Ryan Illumi of the Vancouver Whitecaps representing the mighty MLS with a lot of mid-level European representation as well. Your thoughts on this Tunisia team, their odds to get out of the group, and a player to watch?
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that is very good at managing to not lose games. Um, and they're a very defensively sound team. Like they're a team you look at on paper and you're like, how does this team consistently make the World Cup every year? I just think that they have a really good structure. The guys really they seem to buy into whatever the coach has them doing, and they are just very compact, sound team. And one of the guys, as I mentioned, I think they're strong defensively. They kind of know what they need to do from that perspective. So I think the question mark is going to be on the attacking side. And so my player to watch is a more attack-minded midfielder. I've gone for Hannibal, who's playing for Burnley right now.
Lecter?
Yep, he's gonna kill some people
Whoa!
out there.
When
He
did
he's got
Tunisia get
some
him?
he's got some killer passes.
Nice.
Um, all right. This episode's been way too long to be making puns at this point. Um, but yeah, he is a attacking midfielder who's been playing for Burnley this season. He's bounced around a little bit. He used to play for Man United. Didn't play a ton for United themselves, but a guy that I've always had heard about and had some potential, um, and seems to be finally getting some proper game time with Burnley this season in the Prem. About 1,400 minutes in all competitions, 1 goal, 4 assists. While that's not anything blowing, that's not blowing anything out of the water. I still think he's going to be an important part of this Tunisia team and really being that difference maker going forward. If he can really kind of take off here, I think that'll be massive for Tunisia to really just keep that solid defense together and then have him be your attacking option. I think that's your ticket to getting out of this group for them.
I myself have gone in the midfield. So for me, it's going to be Rainy Khedira. You may remember that the last time we talked about Tunisia, central midfielder Ferjani Sassi was kind of in the mix. He captained the side. He was one of those guys that we were keeping an eye on. Could he take that team to the next level as the captain? Well, he's been left off the roster, and now they're looking to turn the page. So Khedira, who filed a switch to join Tunisia from Germany, is going to fill in the space in that midfield. And before you ask, yes, related to Sammy. Um, they're going to need to see him step up and dominate the midfield. And I think that, they're going to rely on him a lot. So eyes on him to see if he can step up and make that happen for sure. Okay. This was long, but fun. I had a good time. And I hope all of our listeners did too. I know Connor's dreading the next 2-hour recording that we're going to do, but that's okay. Thank you everybody for listening and watching. Make sure you're subscribed because this is only half of the preview. We are doing a second half that will go out tomorrow. So you can have 18 hours of content, it feels like, back to back, and you won't have to miss a single thing. So Group G through L will come out in the next 24 hours or so. So make sure you are subscribed to see that, and make sure you leave us a comment on which team you think is going to win the World Cup, and we will make sure to check it out in our week or match week 1 preview episode in a few weeks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.